What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Cartoon Season. I'm Tyler, and this is all about animation, of course, cartoons, anime, all that good stuff. Today we are actually doing something fairly recent. I think the last episode of this was last week before maybe. A little behind on it, but we're doing Arcane first season, and yes, it is labeled as season 1 because we know a season 2 is coming out. Very excited for that. Just gonna talk about the whole season. How much of I would say a shock for me at least. Not necessarily that it's good, because I feel like Netflix has done a fairly good job of acquiring and like working with some really good creators. But my experience with League of Legends is my friend Ray. He plays it. No interest for me with the game, but the show kind of almost makes you want to play it. But yeah, we're talking about season 1. Bunch of stuff there. The big one I'm going to start with is I'm going to talk about Powder becoming Jinx. That's obviously a through line in the show. I want to talk about the Undercity's independence and that whole struggle, which started before the timeline of the show. And then as well as the parallels between Shimmer and Hextech and how they aren't really that different from each other. And then also some predictions for what season 2 is going to be. So that's going to be fun. And yeah, so before I get into that, make sure to go to the YouTube Tiger to YouTube. Find more episodes of this as well as any other podcast platforms you got. And yeah, so let us get into Powder becoming Jinx. Very big part of the show. I would say one of the main reasons the show even exists. Probably like 60% of the show is affected by Powder / Jinx. At least. And it's a really nice transformation. It doesn't always go in a place that I would like it to go, but then again, that's the point, right? Like, I would love it. I mean, I'm gonna go like step by step basically on all the different major points in Powder's life. But this is definitely one of the characters, maybe my favorite character, but also one of the most frustrating characters to watch because you really just want her to not be crazy, I guess, even though it's not her fault. You just kind of want her to be like, yes, Vi, we're together again, we can help each other, and we love each other because we're sisters, and you just want that to happen. You just want that to get through to her, but it doesn't. But we start all the way back at the beginning with Vi and Powder being taken in by Vander, along with some other people. Milo, Clagger, and Echo. Those guys didn't realize those guys were orphans. I thought they were just like friends. In hindsight, though, it does make sense because Vander does kind of refer to Milo and Clagger as children, or as kind of like his children almost. Echo was a little different for me, but I guess it does make sense again because he's just chilling with Vander's friend. I forget his name, the shopkeep. But yeah, they're taken in, and so it's a classic setup of they're orphans because of the war. All the tragedy and everything. And so that already is kind of tough for them, but it does make them closer, because that's all the real family that they got. And then we jump forward very quickly over to Vi and the gang. They are always trying to prove themselves, and Powder's always messing up, right? Powder is a little younger than them, I'm pretty sure, and she's not always carrying her weight. We learn this as the first episode and second episode go on, that she kind of always messes up like every single job they're on. There's something about her, and then Vi covers for her as she should, but that doesn't really help her in the long run. And they're on a job though, and Powder does pretty good. She's able to get some crystals. This is something that they don't really know the power of. You can tell that some of the higher ups, some of the older people, like not the kids, might recognize the power of what Powder has. But this is kind of the first time that we see that she's really grabbed something of use. And this is like this pretty much kicks off the entire show right here. These dang crystals. But up until now, she's starting to redeem herself a little bit, But then we fast forward a little bit to Vi going to save Vander because Vander's in trouble, and all of those good graces are like half wiped out by her throwing the Hall into the ocean. Which, quick side note on that, I don't feel like that's really Powder's fault. I mean, she clearly wasn't cut out to like fight someone like that, and I feel like they knew it. Like the whole blaming Powder for everything, I don't really think that's fair, because if she messes up a bunch, I feel like if you guys are more well equipped than her for these type of jobs, I feel like it's your responsibility to cover for her, and also like train her and everything. Like how much time do they actually spend helping each other? Like get better at everything rather than just hanging out at that one like arcade place, because other people aren't that great either. Like Vi is pretty good, but other people aren't like amazing. But anyway, and then we finally see the double down and the let down with Vi having Powder stay home because she isn't ready. She was fine with those smaller jobs, but for something like this, something like serious, Vi does not want Powder to come. And I don't necessarily think it's because she thinks that Powder's gonna mess it up. It could just be because she's her older sister and she knows this is like dangerous, and she's already going to save her father. Essentially, she doesn't want to lose her sister in the process, which is fair. Again, like it sucks because from Powder's point of view, Vi has basically solidified what Powder thought everyone thought of her, which is that she's really useless when it gets serious, and when you would think that you would need everyone for help, Powder's left out. And that is, of course, another not good thing in the Powder saga, because then it ends up with her deciding, well, I'm just going to go, I'm going to help, I got this, I got the crystals, right? That's good. My little machines, my little gadgets have not been working out so far, but with the help of these crystals, I've seen what they can do. I can at the very least blow their base up, maybe kill a few on the way, and chalk that up to a good day. Doesn't work though. She kind of does, like on a small scale, she does what she wanted to do, but on a big scale, the explosion does take some people out, but it unfortunately kills Milo and Clagger, which if you would just have just a quick hard stop right here, did not expect it to get this dark this quickly. I feel like the vibe so far has been, we've had some overtones here and there for these first 2 episodes, and then this is the 3rd episode right now I'm already on. And but I feel like now, like, to just see them clap Milo and Clagger so quickly, like 3 episodes into this entire, like, we don't know how many seasons this is gonna be. Hopefully the quality is good enough and Netflix is nice enough to these creators that, if they want to make 10 seasons, we got 10 seasons. But for Milo and Clagger to be gone that quickly, I was not expecting that. Like I was expecting them to be hurt, kind of like how Vi was hurt, very badly injured, but she was able to bounce back. But that right there, you could feel like your heart sink, because that that's gonna come back around on Powder. Which eventually I'll talk about in a second with Vi blaming her, but even just with her own mind, like with all of her self-doubts, and then for her to indirectly kill Milo and Clagger, I mean, it's no wonder that, throughout the rest of the show, she's kind of gone insane. And not only does she kill them, but she does injure Vander and Vi. And then we have the end where Vi does call Powder a jinx. And that is really the, her moment, right? Her character defining moment that makes her who she is. And again, if we just stop right there, I don't know how fair that is. I mean, it's easy to speculate, because as that was happening, I thought to myself, like, would they have been better off if Powder did not come on her own? and try to help. You could say yes. Maybe they would have all escaped in time. Maybe that door would have held for enough time for Claggor to break the wall, and for Milo to free Vander and everything. Maybe, but maybe the door wouldn't hold long enough, and Vi is already pretty exhausted at this point. She's already pretty beat up. Vander is out of practice, right? And Milo and Claggor, I mean, they probably won't be too much help, if any, against that Shimmer beast, and the Shimmer, 100% health, 100% stamina, you know what I mean? Like, he got hit a couple times, but he's pretty much tip-top shape, and then we later, which I kind of skipped over because it wasn't really that important, the Powder story, but, Vander did hold off the Shimmer beast for, like, a couple blows. And you could say, well, that's because Vander got hit with the explosion, but so did the Shimmer thing. So I feel like they're in pretty even footing with how much damage they took, if we're thinking of this in like an RPG. And he couldn't take him out then. So I don't know, even at full power of Vander, if he could take out the full power Shimmer. So it's like, you kind of look in the alternate reality of Powder not coming, and would it be better? I don't know. It could have been worse. Maybe all four of them would have died. And Powder would have just been waiting for them to come back home, and none of them did until, I don't know, a little bit later in the night, maybe the next morning, when she finds out from someone that her literally, I mean, except for Echo, her entire family is dead. So like, I get why Vi was upset at the time, because two of her best friends and her father just died, but I don't know that it's fair to blame Jinx. I mean, yes, Jinx did do this, but in the end, Vi's alive, right? That's 1 out of 4. I don't know that we would have gotten even 1 out of 4 alive family members if Powder didn't come. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been 0. But again, it's all speculation. And then in that moment, we do see that Vi, Vi tries to go back to her, because we see Silco coming for Powder, and we, in the moment we see Silco holding the gun, like, we're like, okay, he's gonna take revenge on them. He's gonna try to kill both Powder and Vi. But Marcus captures her, right? Marcus stops her, brings her to jail, which, in a way, I guess he was kind of sparing her, because he probably would have killed Vi. Like, Powder's one thing, because Silco, there's no real way to know. I mean, maybe later on Powder told Silco what happened that night, but in the moment, there's no way Silco knew that the explosion was due to Powder. You know what I mean? So he just sees a child, decides to maybe kill her, but then is like, you know what? I can take you in. Because also, another thing that we may, forget, from time to time throughout the show, like, Silco and Vander were pretty much like brothers at one point. You know what I mean? They had a huge disagreement. We'll talk about that later when we get into the Undercity's independence segment. But you could almost see that as, like, he still loved Vander to an extent, and Powder is, Vander's kid for all intents and purposes. So you could see that as, like, it's his niece, like, maybe not kill her. Maybe we don't have to. We had a huge little, time skip here. After Powder's taken in by Silco, we see that Powder is now Jinx, and she is helping Silco smuggle Shimmer into Piltover. This is a big change for her character. Kind of nice to see on one side, because, Jinx was never really trusted to do something, was never really trusted to be a part of the job. She was always kind of the weak link, and now she's kind of their secret weapon. So it's a full 180. We have some nice action here. I'm not going to touch on the action too much, because it's tough to recap action. But we get some nice action scenes here with Jinx knowing how to use her full arsenal. She knows, not only how to use her, like, little gadgets and stuff, but also how to move. She's very athletic. And let's see what else we got. There's one moment here, which is huge, where Jinx freezes when she sees someone who looks like Vi. At first glance, I thought it was Vi. I thought that's how they were going to reconnect the relationship. It wasn't. because she immediately kills her. But she does freeze, and then that's when you really start to see the complexity of this Jinx character, where she does still think about that. She's not completely gone. She's not completely like a monster. She's not just Silco's like drone, right? She still does have feelings for Vi. Again, in a different show, different writers might have taken this a different way, to where she has completely disassociated herself from her past life. Maybe she's tried, later on we see that's definitely not true. Like, she wants to see Vi. That's a big moment for her. She does try to make it up, though. She does have a nice relationship with Silco, at least from her end. And from Silco's end, I guess, because, again, we do learn as the show goes on, the relationship is not just, like, employer and employee, right? They actually do have a more familial bond than probably Vi would like to see and admit. And so, she does try to impress him later on to try to make up for, some of the missteps that she's had along the way, by retrieving a Hextech gemstone, which is great because that is some crazy power. Mixing that with maybe some of the shimmer technology that we got Silco running with, would make this a whole lot easier. His empire, right? So now she's back in his good graces. She never really left. Again, we learn later on that there's nothing Jinx could do to really make Silco upset, except for leave him, probably. We get a little bit later on, when Jinx does realize that Vi is alive, which kind of sours her relationship with Silco briefly, and this is one of my favorite moments in the whole show. This is one of the hypest moments in the whole show for me, is when Jinx pulls out that flare that she was given in episode 3, I think. And that came back around because it was given to her by Vi when they went to go save Vander, and Vi was like, if you get in trouble, just light the flare. Wherever you are, I'll find you. And that was a nice little moment. It never was, wasn't necessary, with that fight, with that rescue mission. And you kind of forget about it, or at least I did. I forgot that moment even happened until she pulled it out and lit it. And that was so cool because at first you're like, oh yeah, Vi's gonna find her immediately, and then we get a little bit of a die down where it starts to pewter and she starts to break down, and it's like, it's never gonna happen. It was stupid to think that anywhere my sister is, she'd find me if I just light this flare. And then she does, and it's awesome. It's a nice reunion, and it sucks because then Vi gets immediately taken away from her. And you just really see that Jinx has suffered more than any character in the show. I would wager, any alive character anyway. Vi's up there. Silco's up there. Even someone like Jace, which we don't really talk about too much. He's not really too much of a part of Jinx's story. We'll touch on him later, but Powder Jinx really, really messed up. She's got a lot of issues, and again, you really can't blame her for how she acts, and how confused she is, and how much she wants to have one foot in, one foot out. And then it's even more exemplified a little later on, where it's the bridge scene, and she uses the robot insects to kill Marcus, and then injuring Vi and Caitlyn. Marcus's death is kind of bittersweet because he was an enforcer. He was working with Silco. He didn't really like him, but then we have the scene where Silco turns his daughter, and he realized that he got in over his head, and he really was just doing what he thought was right. And then with the death of his mentor, that really turned him all the way. But then Powder also injuring Vi and Caitlyn, that's something that really stings Vi. You can see her look back on the bridge, and she realizes that, Powder might not exist anymore. And how much Jinx was just ready to do it. Like, she was like, yeah, this is what it has to be. And then for her to even fight Echo to, assuming fight to kill. Again, Echo, another one of her family members that's alive. But even with that, on Echo's side, we see that Echo can't kill Jinx because he still sees her as Powder. Those familial bonds are still strong enough. Even all the trash that he talked to Vi about her, he still can't do it, and I don't blame him. Jinx obviously uses this as a opportunity, detonates a bomb, injures them both severely, but she's able to get away. Again, in that moment, you could argue if she was doing that to kill, or if she's doing that to get away. Again, we're not sure how far, how far on she her mind is. And then we get to really the climax of this season when it comes to her character. She abducts Silco, Vi, and Caitlyn, brings them to her dinner, quote unquote. And there's also dolls of Milo, Claggart, and Vander, which you've seen before, but now it's all out in the open for everyone to see. Vi especially is probably horrified of this, because I think this, she's been given examples of where Jinx's mental state is at and what Jinx has gone through since that day. But this right here, being kidnapped by her, and then also having Silco and Caitlyn there, and then having, I would say especially the dolls of Milo, Claggart, and Vander, and she just looks around and she's like, this is not good, if anything, every time we see something more like this, you can see it break Vi to know that her sister had to endure all of this. She probably thought she had it worse, where she was in prison for these months and years. I don't know exactly how much time has passed, but she was in prison, but really she kind of came out okay. It sucked, I'm sure, but Powder went through some serious trauma. And then we got Jinx wanting Vi to kill Caitlyn. She's been jealous of Caitlyn the whole time. she feels like Vi is replacing her with Caitlyn, which isn't true. And then double down on that, Caitlyn is a topsider, right? It's like, why? No, you don't do that. They're the reason for this, and this. Again, because of all her trauma, she kind of can't see past the black and white. Especially with her being under Silco, it's just what she knows. And then also, triple on top of that, telling telling Vi to kill Caitlyn so that you'll get Powder back. Be like, oh, if you kill her, it's great. I'll be Powder. I'll be by your side for the rest of our lives. It'll be great. You'll have your sister back. Really, really evil stuff. Again, I don't know if she's meaning for it to be like that, but that's a real super villain. And throughout all this, both Vi and Silco are both trying to appeal to Jinx. They're both trying to bring her to her side. Both of them are making arguments as to why Jinx means more to them than the other one. It kind of causes her to freak out. And in the midst of all this, Caitlyn does break out of it, which is very clever. But Jinx, with the power of the shimmer in her, she moves too quick. She's too powerful. She knocks her out very quickly, to the dismay of Vi. Again, another example of, I may not be able to get my sister back. And again, in the midst of all this arguing, and Jinx can't think straight. We've seen her have these flashes many times at this point, and she ends up killing someone. I feel like the way it was shot the first time, it made us scared that she shot Vi, but then the chair turns around, we see that she shot and killed Silco, which immediately is a fist pump moment. Yes, she chose Vi, and then you immediately realize that she did not choose Vi. She really did not mean to kill Silco. That was just a lot of emotions in her mind. She was being confused with all the words that were being spewed of what's happening here, where her end game even is. What is it exactly? She brought everyone here to this dinner. What did she want to happen? I guess probably for Vi to kill Caitlyn, and then for Silco and Vi to just be cool with each other. It'd probably be her best case scenario. It was never gonna happen though. And in that last moment, again, I've talked about it before, but this is really solidifying what Silco's relationship was with Jinx, where with his dying breath, he says that, he was never going to give Jinx up to have Piltover give the Undercity his independence. He was never gonna do that, because it's like a daughter to him. In that moment, again, we're kind of on the edge of our seat, because we're like, how is this gonna resolve? Powder Jinx pretty much has all the power in this moment for the resolution of this episode in this season, and where the trajectory of her story, as well as Vi's story, Caitlyn's story, all where it's gonna go. And she sits down in the Jinx chair, and she has accepted her identity as Jinx, not only for herself, but also how she is now separate from Vi. They were once on the same road, fork in the road. They're now on different paths, and Jinx has accepted that, and Vi just at this point has to accept it, that they are going to exist away from each other. Very rough moment, very, very rough. I'll talk about it a little more. I'll take into my predictions, because I feel like there's a lot that could come from this. Basically, it ends. Jinx's story for this season ends with her shooting the crystal rocket launcher at the council building, and it is just as they finished voting to give Zaun independence. We don't see the impact. Well, I guess we do. I guess we see like a nice little end shot of the rocket just barely kissing the huge stained glass window of the council building, but we don't see the explosion. We don't see what happens to people inside. I imagine that's what's gonna open up the next season. But yeah, that's kind of the full, a little long, but it really is the full story of Powder and Jinx. And again, like I said, I feel like she's had the most pain. She's gone through the most. She has the most trauma. One thing I wanted to touch on at the top of the episode, but I forgot, was because it doesn't really fit into any one of these categories, but I love the art style of this. I love the animation. Even this screenshot right here, if you're on YouTube, currently I have a screenshot of Jinx, for a few reasons. One, because I'm talking about Jinx. Two, because I want, because I love the art, right? If you're looking at it right now, it's 3D, but it has a lot of 2D elements to it, which I love when animators and illustrators and all that stuff, they meld 2D and 3D together. You don't have to pick one or the other. And when you do it right, it looks fantastic. And then even like the style of it, like it looks like a painting, It doesn't look like hard lines. It doesn't look like, it's different than really most other things. Just the style of it, like when we talk about 2D and 3D, like with the 2D of it, like I said, it looks like a painting, but with the 3D of it, it almost looks like, not really clay, but it looks like it was sculpted. You know what I mean? Amazing. And then the third reason why I have that image up is because I love this image in particular, because it reminds me about her personality, and like just that look in her eyes where something just happened and she now knows what she's going to do. It's probably not good. She's probably about to kill someone or something. Some of my favorite moments of that are, it was when she finally got reunited with Vi and they're fighting the firelights, and someone was like behind her and about to like basically slice her in half from top to bottom with like a sword or something, and she just has that like wide-eyed, like dead look in her eyes, like almost like she has right here in this image I have pulled up, and she just very slightly leans her body to the side and does like almost like a half step. But it's one of the most disturbing like 2 seconds of this whole show, because she didn't look, her body didn't move unnecessarily. She just, like, again, with that blank, almost like calculated but also kind of psychotic look in her eyes, she just kind of steps away from it and then like murders this man. And that's another reason why I love this character. And also with her specifically, with the art style, whenever she does have these thoughts, like we have the weird flashes, the overlays, the 2D like graffiti drawings that get put on characters like through the lens of her eyes. It's really cool. But yeah, Jinx, my favorite character of the show. Definitely my the most interesting character in the show. I'm very interested to see where she goes. Touch on that when we get to predictions, though, because next we got, I don't know why that's on the screen. I think it just does it when it flips. We got the Undercity's Independence, a much shorter segment, but I did want to touch on it because I think it is very core to what this show is. And I have an image of Silco up for a reason. Because we started this whole thing with basically Vander, right? We know that he was a leader, maybe the leader. I'm not quite sure, of the rebellion, and now he's a barman, So that right there kind of shows, very very loosely shows the arc of the Undercity trying to get their independence, where it obviously didn't work. They tried, they lost a lot of people. He mentioned this, and now he's just trying to keep everyone together. Then we have Silco. Silco, real time in the show, he's trying to launch another revolution with the help of his shimmer. He thinks with this, he can have, people have these superhuman abilities, and the top side is not going to be able to stop them. I don't necessarily believe, as the show goes on, I think we break down Silco's character more and more. I don't really believe him to be evil. I think some of the things he does can be considered evil, but I really do think he's just someone that really wants his city's independence, something that he fights for. And I think he's been dealt a bad hand. I think just like everyone else in the Undercity, they do what they gotta do. I think that's a perfect parallel to many of the groups of people in real life, where they may do some things that are looked at as not good, but that's the situation they're in. They gotta do it. Murder's one thing, but there are other things, that people do that it's out of desperation. It's out of, well, this is what I have to do to survive. And I think Silco's kind of in that tough position. And again, we get some flashbacks. We learn, again, more and more with their relationship, that Vander and Silco were partners. They were basically brothers. But that ended with when Vander made a deal with the Enforcers. And Silco very much disagreed with it. They have two sides of the same coin, right? Where Vander, in the moment, realized that if he doesn't agree to just being, or not being, just like having peace with Topside and just being you over there, I'll be over here, was going to be the way to save more lives. Whereas Silco was like, no, we can't, like, after all they've done, we're just going to, they win. Vander wouldn't see it like that, of course, but Silco does. It's like we had a goal, we didn't achieve it, we lost. Like, we are still under their rule. We still do what they say. Like, they still have the power to cut off our resources. We're not independent. We haven't won. We're not good. And we see a little bit later with Silco trying to make some sort of agreement, one that is more heavily favored for him, Zaun actually getting independence. Unfortunately, that does come with a stipulation that he cannot agree to, which we talked about just a few minutes ago, with Jace needing, needing someone to punish for everything that's happened so far, and we need Jinx. Silco was going to give himself up, but it's, Jace makes a good point where it's like, I can't make a deal with you and then put you in jail or kill you, you know what I mean? Then what happens to the deal? I gotta have someone else, and I'm gonna end this one the same way I did the last one, where the Independence story arc ends with Jinx shooting a crystal rocket at the council right as they were decided to give Zaun independence. Again, I'm gonna talk a little bit probably more about this in predictions, but it is interesting that the Independence storyline kind of ends there. They fight and they fight and they fight and they finally get it without giving up Jinx, at least in the moment, right? And I'm sure if that played out, Jace would have had to go back to Silco and there would have been a conversation there. But it's funny that they get their independence. Silco does not live to see it, and Jinx, his daughter, basically, you're assuming is about to ruin that. Again, we'll get into a little bit with predictions, but it's it's funny that it almost like it almost came full circle. With them trying to gain their independence from everyone. But yeah, so there's a nice thing there. I mean, like, it's a story that we've kind of seen before with certain like dystopian books or movies and stuff. With the whole gaining Independence Day, right? But it is nice that they like achieved their goal, but no one is going to actually reap the rewards, or not the rewards, the benefits of independence. But yeah. Next and final topic, before predictions, we got Shimmer versus Hextech, and how I feel like Hextech is supposed to be looked at as good and Shimmer is supposed to be looked at as bad, but I feel like they are almost the same exact thing. It's just how it's portrayed, right? So we have the, going more on the Hextech side, we got the crystal, which causes the explosion from powder by the gang, all that stuff, right? Where immediately it's, we see something very powerful and very valuable, but right off the rip, we see that, what becomes Hextech, not great, not great. Blows up a building, messes with Jace here, almost messes with Jace's, who's the girl? It's Caitlyn, right? Isn't that Caitlyn? Yeah, so, I mean, right off the rip, it's like, this does not have a good history. And then we see more of like, what's his name? Heimerdinger, I think that's how you say his name. We got more of him, like, being like, no, this is not good. Like, you think it's good, and it might be good, but it's not good. And then on the Shimmer side, we have a more aggressive portrayal of how bad it is, with Shimmer turning people into, like, savage monsters, right? Turning people into, like, the Hulk, almost. Probably with less, like, motor skills, probably. And then even more from that, I don't know if I touch on this, I don't think I do, but people need the Shimmer because it does help certain parts of you, but it messes with other parts of your body, especially your brain, and it is more like a drug. Like, Shimmer is looked at as more of a drug, whereas Hextech and the crystals and all that is looked at more as like an energy source. Almost like nuclear power, where it's like nuclear power can be really, really good, but we as a society, we are still too scared of it, from what it could bring. And that's a whole other conversation that probably isn't suited for this podcast. But and then going back to the crystals, Jace obviously believes that the crystals can advance Piltover because it once saved his own life. So it's like, these are good, like, we can use this, and even earlier on in the show, it's shown that Piltover is kind of in need of something like that. We're in, right now it might seem kind of stagnant when it comes to our progress as a society. Like we need something, we need some crazy breakthrough from someone to get us to the next level of our advancement. So it's possible this thing could do it, and Jace does this wholeheartedly, and him and Victor, they shadily create Hextech. Again, has some very, very good potential, but just the fact that we had to go behind people's backs, like, there has to be a reason why people like Heimerdinger and even other people on the council are like, we don't know if this is a good idea. Again, they're up until this point, we're constantly riding the line of, some people say it's good, some people say it's bad, and you're kind of fighting for Jace because you feel like he's a good person and he's really trying to help everyone. But then again, you look at some of the council members who have been here for a lot longer, and if they're not into it, maybe experience is something that we should heed. Because then we look at one of the most crucial scenes in the whole show with, Powder abusing the crystals, not knowing how to use them, proving Heimerdinger's point that in the wrong hands these can be dangerous. The crystals end up killing Milo and Clagger, and indirectly killing Vander, injuring Vi, turning Powder into Jinx. Like, there's a lot of bad stuff that came because of the crystals, and even just that one moment. Crystals didn't exist, none of that stuff would have happened, at least in that way. And even right after that, on the Shimmer side, again, bad. On the Shimmer side, Vander takes Shimmer to save Vi. Yes, very good thing there. But he dies because of it. You know, like he's able to save her, cool, but again, in that moment, if he didn't take it, would Vander and Vi would have died? Maybe. But if we're just looking at the facts of what happened, Shimmer killed him, you know. And then a little bit later, we're going back to Jinx. This time, not with Shimmer, with Hexstone, or Hextech Gemstone. She goes to retrieve some, right? Because, you know, to press Silco and all that. And ends up killing multiple Enforcers in the process. Now, you can say that's not directly because of Hextech, but just Hextech existing and people wanting it, again, maybe not so good people wanting it, could lead to casualties and deaths. Because they are willing to fight, they're willing to kill to get that sort of power. And then another thing on the bad side, again, more like drug parallels. We got Marcus helps Silco to smuggle Shimmer. Probably don't need to smuggle things that are good. And also in that, Marcus kind of turns because of it. Silco exists because, you know, like the, again, indirect, the indirect portrayal of these two things. We got Heimerdinger again, he wanting to destroy the Hex core, and Jace hasn't voted off the council. So again, this is something that at this point you can definitely see that Jace has become obsessed with this technology, and because of it, he is doing some things that he probably wouldn't do if this thing didn't exist. Again, you can argue if this is for good or for bad, but I don't know. You know, maybe Heimerdinger was just the old dude that should step down. You know, it's your time. You know, we need some younger people who actually have maybe more of a grasp on what our city has become and what it really needs rather than what it did need. But again, it's still a very controversial thing that he did. I don't know. Then we got Silco bribing the locals with Shimmer to find Vi and Caitlyn again. It is destroying many lives. Again, more drug parallels to, basically people being reliant on it. The one dude who was quote unquote friends with Vi, it turns out that he was just being used so that he can get some Shimmer, you know. So again, some very not good things. We got Victor using the Shimmer and the Hex core to fix his body. So now we have them both together. Now it's just a double dose of bad. You could say, yes, this is great. He's able to fix parts of his body. But for every good thing, we got a bad thing, right? And the Hex core / Shimmer combination that helped improve Victor's body, made him not have to use that cane anymore, right? A very big moment for him. His whole thing, not his whole thing, but a very large part of his character is that, he was disabled ever since a child. And, that didn't really help him in the social circles, right? So it's great. Then we see that it kills his assistant Sky, who seemed like a really good person, really eager, wanting to work, liked Victor, at the very least as like an inspiration, right? And she got turned to dust. she got Thanos snapped. So again, we got a good thing, we got a bad thing. Another good thing, we did have Shimmer help save Jinx's life, right? Then we got later on where it's like, is that even further corrupting her? Because we've seen what Jinx can do, or not Jinx, we've seen what Shimmer can do to people, where it can maybe not put them in quite the right mindset. And the end of all this, we got Jinx shooting the crystal rocket launcher at the council as they decide to give Zaun independence. Again, not only directly with the rocket launcher itself, having Shimmer and Hextech technology, but also the whole situation with the independence and where that came from, and how Shimmer and Hextech play a part in that, play the part in the council, they play a part in what Jace has been able to convince the council of in that moment. It's just so much, again, so I just wanted to kind of put a light on that to show that they are not so different from each other. Initially, they're given two very different faces, but I think by the end of it, I think you realize that both of these things are very dangerous. I don't think that either of them are going to lead to anything particularly good, particularly, in the right direction. And I think as it goes on, they're just going to get abused more and more, Yeah, and then we reach the prediction section. I actually didn't write too many things down because I didn't really have too many like specifics. Because I really honestly feel like this can be a show that can last for many seasons. Especially with like the roster that League of Legends has, with the roster that Riot has. I'm sure they can intertwine a bunch of stuff, and even if they don't give up too many characters from the League of Legends roster in the show, I still feel like this show, the world they've built, I feel like is very vast. Like there are, in my mind, I've made comparisons, to things like Game of Thrones, where it's like, again, I'm not saying that's going to be the same quality, but this first season is a very good indicator for what I hope the quality is going to be for the rest of the show. And also, like I said, with like the world they've built with the different, we got the Undercity, we got Topside, we got Council specifically, we got different factions in the Undercity, we got different generations, with different mindsets and stuff. So I think the parallels with Game of Thrones, I think, make sense, on that side as well. So just some of the predictions I got really 4. As I'm talking, I might think of 1 or 2 more, but some immediate stuff. Like I said, I do think the first episode is just going to open up where the last episode started, with the explosion. And I think it's safe to say at least one council member is going to die from that. I think the only way I could be wrong in that scenario is if Victor is the one who dies, because Victor is in the council room. I don't think Victor will die. I don't like that ending to his character. I feel like something else should kill him if he doesn't end up dying. But I do think at least one council member will die. I think the more that die, the more interesting it'll be. I don't think Jace will die either. I think we need him. I think it's possible that the one council lady, is her name just like Mel? Isn't it something like that? The one that Jace has a relationship with. I think it's possible that she will die, because part of me is like, no, I think she's important to the story. I think we're gonna need more of her. But then part of me is like, that could be a really crazy spike to throw into Jace's character, if she dies. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I do think one of them has to die though, because even if it doesn't, like, I could see them doing nobody. I'd just be like, okay, this is we're gonna attack. It's got to be them. Something's gonna, a huge story turn is gonna happen regardless. But I think at least one of them has to die to just further pound in that, that sentiment of, oh no, it's war. Like this is happening, or at least it's already started. Next, I got that Echo and Heimerdinger are gonna help the Firelights thrive. I think that's an easy one, but I feel like the second season there's gonna be a lot more focus on the Firelights, and I think Heimerdinger being there is really, really cool because he's not on the council anymore. He doesn't really have anywhere else to go. So him joining the Firelights, almost just as like a consultant with all of his knowledge, and his also being a scientist. Like, I think that him and Echo is going to be a really good matchup for bringing the Firelights to their potential as a group. I think that's going to be really cool to see. Vi and Caitlyn will continue to be the bridge between the Undercity and Piltover. I think that's an easy one. I think if they do go to war, it's going to be even more interesting, because Caitlyn is inherently a topsider, from Piltover and everything, and Vi is inherently an undersider. I'm not saying it's going to be like Romeo and Juliet. I think that's a little cliche, but I do think they're going to keep in contact. I think that there've been a couple times in the series where it's like, oh no, they're not anything, they're not even really friends, they're gonna go their separate ways. But I think after all they've been through, especially the last episode, I think they are gonna maintain a relationship. I don't know the level of relationship that they have, but do think they are going to help each other, and they are, because I think they both have really good heads on their shoulders, and I don't think Vi has much of a chip on her shoulder about Piltover as a whole. It's like everyone in Piltover is evil, whereas it goes the other way too, where it's like Caitlyn is ignorant, and through Vi she has learned a lot, and like the Undercity, they're not just bad people, so I think they've both been able to simmer down each other's generalizations they had about each other's world, I guess. I think we're gonna continue to see that. And then big character, we got Jinx. I wasn't really sure where to fit her in all of this. I think it's possible she might be either lead or at least be a huge key figure for the rebellion for the Undercity. Because I do think that's where she's going. I think Silco dying is kind of it for her, and I think she is going to fight for the Undercity in ways that she probably doesn't have to, in ways that it's probably reckless, might make things worse, but I do think she's going to rile up a lot of people in the Undercity, and unfortunately her actions, as well as many other characters' actions, are going to lead to some sort of war. I think that just has to happen. I don't know. With the council room about to explode, I don't know how they can recover from that in a what's the word? With a diplomatic solution, That's pretty much all the predictions I have. There's not too many more. Again, like with the show ending the way it did, I feel like I pretty much just covered everything. We got Echo and Heimdinger and the Firelights, right? I mean, with them, if you want to extend with that, I do think they have a chip on their shoulder about Piltover or for Piltover. I think Heimerdinger will calm that. But it's tough because like you could try and make the Firelights choose a side. They might not choose a side. They might just be a third party, So that's all I got. Very, very good show. Just to cap this off, very good show. I love everything about it. I don't think there's anything else they could have done to make the show better. Visually stunning. I thought the writing was amazing. The characters were fun, interesting. Very excited that season 2 has already been greenlit, and I hope it comes soon. I hope. And really another thing, kind of the last thing I want to say about this is this really, and I saw this going around, but this really does show what a product, what the quality of a product can be when the team behind a show like this is just given the resources they need to create a show like this. When it comes, whether it's money or time or whatever, like this show, and I could be wrong, some reports could come out later on about this, but it really doesn't feel like they were rushed. It doesn't feel like there was crunch, because there's just such polish, to the show. There's such, like, there are things, even just visually about the show that are added in, and it's just like, there's no way they did that under crunch. There is a way, but because obviously there's amazingly highly regarded products that have come because of crunch, but like, I don't know, there's little things here and there, little details here and there that's just like, I just don't imagine that people that were rushed into finishing this product just to push it out were able to add these little touches here and there, to bring the show from a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10, I just don't know that's possible. But I really do hope that if that is the case, that is the case, and it continues to be the case, that people like Netflix and the other studio that Riot and Netflix partnered with, to make this continue to give their workers, their animators, illustrators, background artists, writers, lighters, all these people, the resources to continue to make the show amazing, because this could really go down as one of them shows, but yeah, so that is all. That is everything. I've talked too much about this show, so yeah, let me know what you thought of this show. I thought it was incredible. Let me know anything that I missed, as well as any predictions that you have different from mine, or maybe you just disagree with some of the stuff I have. Let me know why I am wrong. Let me know what you want me to see me do next, or hear me do next, I guess. Lots of good shows out there. I'm going to try to do more up-to-date stuff, more current stuff. I'm a little late on this. I probably could have done this a couple weeks earlier, but let me know. Also, didn't touch on this at all at the top of the episode. This is a bonus episode. I didn't touch on this at all. This is not coming out on the regular day. I'm recording this right now. I'm probably going to put this out. You're probably going to see that this was uploaded on a Wednesday, I would imagine. Not going to be the regular Monday episode, just because I don't want to slide this in somewhere and replace it with something and then push something out, because I record things fairly far in advance. So things like this, like current shows that are airing, I'm not going to try to squeeze them into the regular Monday slot and just mess up my whole schedule. I'm just going to add them in as a little bonus episode for y'all. So y'all are going to get, this is the second episode of the week. So very cool there. So but yeah, that is really it. Seriously it. So yeah, so that was great. And until next time, hopefully we get more shows like this, because adult animation does not only have to be Family Guy. No slight against Family Guy, but it can be stuff like this, doesn't always have to be adult humor, adult gags. It can be something fleshed out like this. So hopefully this helps lead this new generation of amazingly funded adult animated shows.